and today we are going to be talking about the assembly of the Multistruder version 1.0 or the Kickstarter backer, early bird backer Multistruder units. So when you open up your box, you should have it like this. This video is also for some people that have had issues with the shipment and damage of their units, and this is to check to make sure that everything's there that's supposed to be there, as well as being an assembly video at the same time. So if anything is not how you see it in the box, please get in touch with me and we will work on resolving those issues and getting you the parts that you need and getting your unit to be running and functioning how it should be. So this is what it should be like in the box. Again, if anything is not how I say it is or how it looks like in this video, please let me know. And we will resolve those issues that you have. So first off, you have a little checklist here. All these boxes will be checked off, and your name would be at the top. I just folded it over to keep the person's name out of the video. And then you should have a, and the stuff that's on that checklist we'll go over right now, what those particular things are. So here you have a baggie with all your stuff in it. In the front, you have your micro SD card with your adapter, and you'll have your data cable. Here, this black piece here is your stylus. This is what you use on your screen, or you could use your finger, whichever. Here, these two big bolts here are the 1024 for the extruder assembly, and these other two bolts with nuts on them, those are 1024s. Those are for the leg coupler. Alright, so let's go ahead and start taking stuff out. So what it should be packed somewhat similar to this. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to pick up the extruder assembly and start taking stuff out. So here is the fan shroud. It should look something similar to this. If it doesn't look like this, you know, it's got a piece here and then another piece that comes off. If it doesn't look like this, please email me and or get in touch with me and let me know, and we will work on getting you guys a replacement. And here's the fan at the top, in good condition, good running condition. Then we have the leg with foot. So go ahead and pick up the extruder assembly like so, and this thing fits in here pretty tightly. So usually you have to take both sides up at the same time and hook it out from underneath. Now this guy is the stand with foot, and it should have your little your unit number on there, and it should match your extruder, which you see 1. This is unit number 1. Then you should have your auger that looks like so, and then you have your foot, your leg without foot. So, and some people have been asking, this leg should only have holes at one side. I'll explain that in a little bit. Then you have your leg coupler. Looks like this. Then you have your motor with coupler assembly. And inside the motor with coupler assembly, you should have the coupler. And then underneath this coupler, where it attaches to this motor plate, you should have a bearing and a race. You should have a track and a bearing race. So you see here, the top piece is a track, and the middle piece is the bearing race. Those should be underneath the coupler like so. If they're not, and this coupler somehow fell off, but you still have it, go ahead and attach it back to where the race, where it goes the race first. You put the race in. It doesn't matter the orientation of the race, just put it in. You know, facing this way or facing this way, it doesn't really matter. And then put the track right on top, and then just push it in, and then just go ahead and tighten that set screw. Okay, so it should look like this. Also, another thing, some people that have these bolts are going to look different. You're going to have the panhead bolts. But some of them, the holes were not in the right spot, and you might only have 3 bolts, or 2. Some even have 2 bolts. That's fine. Doesn't really make a difference as long as it holds the motor down. Okay, so you have that, and then you have the extruder as well as the assembly. So if you look here very closely, also if you probably saw that your cover and your fan and stuff like that should look like this, good condition, not broken or anything like that. And this piece is also, it's not bolted down, it's just held on with friction. You don't. There's also there's the ability to bolt it in, but it's just easier to take it on and off in order to change components. But in order to bolt it on, there's M3 bolts. I'll show you guys. I'll show you guys in a later segment. So these two pieces are actually attached together. So you see that this piece goes inside and will actually go to electronic. This is the thermocouple wire, and this is the heater wire. These are attached to this steel frame. So you want to lift these both out at the same time, otherwise you're going to start breaking stuff. So lift them both up at the same time, and then just let the wire come. You don't really need to worry too much about the wire. And then just go ahead and let it go down on the table and pull the wire out. Okay. Now put the box aside. And then everything should look similar to you have here. If this guy is coming off, in this case, this guy needs a little bit more work as far as the wires being taped together, so it easily go down. Just go ahead and push it over the display so it's almost flush with the display, but of course not, sitting on the display to break it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to attach this extruder to the stand. So what you're going to do is just lay the extruder on the stand like so. And then you're going to locate your bag. And in your bag, in your little baggie, you're going to have your two bolts, your 1/4 20. Another thing about the box, if you guys are not going to try to reuse the box, the shipment box, or recycle it, because it is recycled material. And being the green engineers, I prefer if you recycle it or reuse it for another shipment or whatever you plan on doing it. But I would suggest recycling it. Rip your address off and then recycle the box or reuse it for another shipment. So you're going to take your two extruder bolts, and then there are two holes here. There's one hole here, center hole over here, and you're just going to place that on top. And then they each have nuts in there, and they're welded, so you don't have to go behind the unit and hold it. You just go ahead and screw those guys in there. And then just go ahead and leave that like that. Now what we're going to have to do is you'll notice it also leaning back and forth. That's fine because you're actually going to put the clamp in tension when you put the bolts down. So what you're going to do next is you're going to attach the foot. Well, what you're going to do is first you're going to make sure that this guy is floating. So you're going to have them tight enough that it picks the extruder up. And what you're going to use to tighten it up a little bit is you're going to use a socket with 11 millimeter. So this is a metric socket. This is actually a quarter inch bolt. So you could actually use a standard head, but the 11 millimeter fits okay for this particular situation. So I'm just going to put these to where these are semi-tight. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually line up the hole in the nozzle with the leg, with the extrusion leg. And we're going to do that because, so yeah, also you want to tighten it down enough to where there's some, I don't know if you guys could see that, but there's some play back and forth. So that's good. So we can do a little bit of adjustment. You're going to take your leg coupler and your leg without a foot. And you're going to take your coupler, and your coupler will slide on to some parts so here it has a little bit of friction. But this way, it has no friction. This way, it has no friction. I mean, it does stop at a point, but it has no friction going on there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to line it up like that. And we're going to just slide it on to the leg on the bottom. I'm going to move it forward so I have a little bit of room off the table. Go ahead and just slide that on there, on the leg. So now the leg's coming off the extruder cap. And as you see right now, the extruder hole is not lined up with the leg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crouch down, and I'm going to look up the extruder stand, and I'm going to move the assembly to where it's lined up the best that I can. And of course, at any time when you have the unit built up, you can move this stuff by just loosening up the bolts and then retightening them again. So now I like how it's lined up. I'm going to put my ratchet, put my socket back on my ratchet, and I'm going to tighten it down very slowly as to not knock it out of alignment that I just did. Perfect. Don't tighten it too much to where you strip the bolt hit, to where you strip the nut or the bolt. It's nice and tight. That's good. Then go ahead and remove your leg and your leg coupler. Now it should look like this. So now it's attached, no play, anything like that. Wires are good, everything's good. So now you're going to go ahead and flip this thing over. I would prefer you have it over the edge of the table, because now we're going to put on the motor assembly. So the motor and the coupler assembly. At this point, I would suggest tightening down all the bolts. As you see here, the reason why I changed the pan heads on you guys' units is because these don't hold tension as well as the pan heads. They tend to want to loosen up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this motor with the coupler assembly, and we are going to put on the auger, put the auger into the motor and coupler assembly. So what we're going to do is, if you see with we're going to take our hex, our hex drivers, I guess you could say, and we're going to use in this case I'm using the 1/8 hex. So it's a 1/8 hex for the set screws. So 1/8 hex, I don't know if you guys could see that. So what we're going to do is first take the coupler and make sure that these set screws are backed out a little bit. Not to the point where they're coming out or anything, but just backed up, so that if you look in there, the set screws are not poking out. And then you're going to take your auger, and then find a flat spot like you see here. I've been putting in there because I've been using this unit. So find a flat spot like that of the hex, and then line that up with the set screws, and then just push that down there to where the flat spot lines up with the hex screws. So you see their flat spot lines up with the hex screws, and it should just go in there, and it'll actually make a sound. Do you hear that? And then you're just going to take, let me switch to the other side of the camera. You're just going to take the assembly and push it to your hip. And then you're just going to go ahead and tighten the top 2 set screws down. Tighten it to nice and tight. Don't strip out the threads of the set screw or the threads of the coupler. So the top 2. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to preload the bearing. So remember how there's a bearing race and a bearing track here? What we're going to do is we're going to take that same 1/8 and go down to this very last one, and we're going to loosen that up, and you see that it just came free. And we're going to push it towards our hip and tighten it. So just to put a little bit of load on that bearing. And now we're also going to do a last check. Make sure that the auger doesn't turn, because the motor actually is locked up normally when it's not on. Motor doesn't turn, and you should have a little bit of play, and that play is because of these the threads and the nuts. That's fine, because we want it to not bear down so much on this 1-inch pipe if the alignment's off a little bit and this guy drags. As you see, it does drag and put lines in the side of the auger, but because of that play, it doesn't destroy the auger. Now what you're going to do, switching back to the other side, is you're going to take the auger, back up a little bit, and you're going to place it inside, and then I'll show you guys here in a second with the motor. You're going to put it inside until the threads start to engage, and then you're just going to turn that guy on there. There it goes. Of course, righty-tighty. And then I just kind of go like this. Now this guy is going to have a certain orientation where you stop. So you're going to keep going around, and then as you see, it's starting to tighten right now. What I want this to happen is I want this motor to be in line with the fan. So I'm going to turn it until it's pretty much flush. And as you see here, this rib goes right through these center welds and down to the nozzle. So if you went in line with it, you see that the motor is pretty much parallel. Here with it's perpendicular, it's parallel with the cable. Now, in order to power the motor, you're going to take this little harness here that comes out of this top hole. It's got two little jumpers on it. One's red and one's black. So with this particular orientation, with the motor facing the fan, which has to be turned to where the motor's facing the fan, otherwise this orientation's flipped. So the motor is on the offset side facing the fan. You have two pins. You have the pin facing up towards the ceiling or up towards the fan, or in this, pretty much in line with the fan. And then you have the bottom pin, which is facing the ground or the back of the backing plate. So you have your red and black wire. The red wire is going to go on the top pin facing the fan or facing the ceiling, and the black wire is going to go to the side facing the ground. And now you're ready to go. Your motor's set up and attached to the motor speed controller. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and flip the unit back over to where it's facing, and we're going to set it up to be attached to the table setup. So with the table setup, you're going to want to use the stand with the foot, and the foot is obviously for table mounting. And if you mount to the wall, you're going to want to use the leg without a foot, or the stand without a foot, I guess you could say. So the reason being is that with this leg, it allows you to put on attachments such as the cooling fan, right? Or the dimensional control or the automatic spooler. So as you saw before, it attaches here at the bottom of the assembly and extends the leg to allow you to do to add stuff onto it. So if it's free hanging from a wall, the only thing this leg is doing is allowing you to put attachments on it. If you don't have any attachments, if you're not using the fan or anything like that, which I would recommend using a fan if it's hanging over the floor because there's so much weight and you want to cool it down before it stretches, then you don't need to use it. So if you're not using a fan or any other attachment and you're bolting it to a wall, not to the floor, then you don't need the leg. If you are, you're going to need the leg, because all the attachments are going to be designed around this particular leg, which these are the same except for this has a foot and that one doesn't. Okay, so in this case we're going to use the foot, and now there's a few ways you could use the foot. You could, bolt it. You could clamp it to a table, bolt it to a wood table, etc., etc. So clamp, bolt, screw it down to a wood table, or whatever you want to do. In my particular case, the way I like to mount it is I like to use a wooden stand. I don't know if you guys seen this from my Maker Faire pictures, but this is a piece of 3/4 to, that's probably about 3/4 to an inch thick plywood, and its dimensions are about 12 inches by 12 inches. You could probably get away with a foot. And I have 4 holes drilled in it for the foot, and with 1/4-inch bolts, because this foot uses 1/4-inch bolts for mounting, as well as the holes on the back of the Multistruder to mount to the wall, which we'll go over to in a second. But those also use 1/4-inch bolts. So if we look back at this guy on how it's bolted to this stand, which is what I recommend, this little base, is if you look at the symmetry, it's actually a little bit offset towards the back. Reason being is the Multistruder is a little bit front heavy, so it wants to try to lean forward. So just set it back a little bit to where it's a little bit more offset to the back side of the board. I'll give you guys the specifications of this at a later date. So how I made this board is I took the Multistruder leg with a foot, and I just drew just use a marker and put where the holes are. Either tape this down or have somebody hold it, or just use one hand and hold it and mark the holes. Then drill the holes to allow bigger than 1/4-inch. So anything bigger than 1/4-inch should be okay. You don't want to go too big because you have more and more play. And then on the back side, what I did is I used some carriage bolts. So these are the heads of the carriage bolts. They're drilled over for the carriage bolt head to fit in there, and allow it to not be protruding out, and so it would sit flat on a table and not vibrate and stuff like that. So this allows it to sit flat on a table and not have any issues. So this is what we're going to use for the example of bolting it to the table. It's also something I would recommend, but if you're just going to clamp it to the table, it's a lot quicker. And but yeah, you can't move it at that point. You'd have to undo the clamps. So we're going to use this guy for the example. And here I have the leg with the foot. And one note to make with the leg with the foot is you see that there's holes only drilled obviously one way through. So what you want is the multi-extruder actually installs with the holes on the sides. So if you see here with my base plate, I have an offset to the back. So here's my offset with the back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it, and I'm going to put this foot on there, either way, this way or this way, but the holes have to be on the left and the right hand side. So you could attach it this way, or you could attach it this way. Either way is fine. But I'm going to attach it here with a number in the front. I'm just going to slide that down on there and take some bolts and some washers. I would suggest washers because it keeps you from taking the paint off. Now it's going to do these hand tight. And then at this point you're going to decide whether you want to use the fan or not. It's a very important point. Starting out, and if you have the standard nozzle, I would suggest just doing it without the fan. You don't really need it with the standard nozzle because it's so cool as it comes out. You could actually cause issues with putting the fan on there. But for this demonstration, I'm going to show putting the fan on. So what I just did is you take the fan, which should look like this, obviously, as you saw at the beginning of the video. You take this little leg, you take this little box here, and you put it at this orientation with the slit facing upwards. And you slide that guy down on there. Move the wires out of the way. Now it's already installed, ready to go, ready for you to put extrusion through that little slit. Okay, so now you're going to take the leg coupler. This is the very important part because it's going to cause you issues later on if you don't do this correctly. What you're going to do is you're going to take your leg, and you're going to do similar to as I said before in the video, is you're going to find a spot, find which side has friction. As you see, both sides of this don't have friction, so that's not going to help me much. So now what I'm going to do, and I would also do this whether it has friction or not, is check it by doing this. Give me a second. Let me pitch up a little bit. Is you're going to look how the holes line up. So I already know from previous experience that this is how it lines up. So with this particular unit, but your unit you'd have to find out. So it lines up here pretty well, but if you flip it over, you see that that doesn't quite line up that great. So this is the way that it lines up. And then you're going to do that exact same thing on your leg of your extruder. Check it, you know, see which side has. And also another thing is that this hole might not be drilled perfectly straight, so check both sides, so flip the orientation. So here I noticed that on the extruder leg, one side fits better than the other side. So I'm going to take note of that. This side is going to be on this side of the extruder, this side is going to be on this side of the extruder. So I'm going to mount it like this. So now I'm ready to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take those two leg coupler bolts out. One here and one here. I'm going to take the nuts off. And then what I'm going to do is take the coupler. Remember which side's which, so I'm going to have this part where it's a little worn off on this side, and then I'm just going to line it up and then push the bolt through. And take the nut and tighten the nut on the other side. Okay. Doesn't need to be really tight as of right now. The 11 millimeter socket will actually work on pretty much everything on this unit, so if you want to use that, you could use that. So now what we're going to do with the extruder itself, I'm going to move this over a little bit. What you're going to do is you're going to pick up the extruder. I'm going to tilt it a little bit here to the side so I could easily get in there. So you're going to take the extruder, you're going to put your hands underneath here, and you're just going to place it inside the coupler. So let's go ahead and do that now. So you guys should be able to see from that angle there. There you go. So I'm just going to pick it up, make sure the wire's not in the way, place it right down on that extruder like so. And now you're pretty much ready to go. You don't really need to bolt it at this point, but it's better for, you know, vibration and stuff like that. And also you see that it fits a little loosely inside the coupler, so you do want it to where it's kind of set backwards, so it actually goes straight down and through that slit of the fan shroud as well as other attachments you have. And you'll notice that some of the holes are not perfect, like this one. I would need to raise the unit a little bit just to get it into the hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pick it up a little bit, move the camera to the back side. So I'm just going to pick the unit up a little bit and then push it through. And there it goes. It's all the way through. Find the nut I was using. There it is, right here is the nut. And there you go. Now the extruder is ready for use. The hole is right over the slit. Ready to go. So now this is what your extruder should look like when you're working with the floor mount. And there you go. You're ready to rock and roll. So at this point, you're going to want to watch that electrical. If this is how you want to mount it to the floor, you can stop the video now and go ahead and check out the electrical and or electronic component portion, the video. And you're going to check to make sure that all the electrical is good to go before you first plug it in. And then at that point, you're going to want to watch the extrusion tips video to start to learn how to use the extruder as I start to continue developing the software to get the automatic mode to work for you. So you're going to want to go through and make sure all the electrical is okay before you start it up, and then go ahead and watch the tips and tricks videos and find your desired temperature that you want to extrude at. So if you guys are taking off on this part of the video, anything that doesn't look like this, that or is broken or anything like that, anything that doesn't match with this video or the electrical video, please let me know. Please get in contact with me. We will work on resolving those issues and getting your multi-extruder to work perfectly. Alright, so at this point we're going to move on to attaching this leg to work on the floor. It's pretty much the same work by bolting it up to a wall, which I'll show you guys in a second. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this off the leg. So I'm just going to unbolt this top piece, and then I'm just going to pick it up and out. Just going to shoot the bolt out, then put the nut on it. So it's a similar procedure with the leg, and like I said, it only has one set of holes, that being because it just hangs by attaching to this coupler. It doesn't actually attach in between. This is pretty much all you need. This is a perfect distance away from the table. So I'm just going to pick it up and off the coupler, and then set it back down on the table. Take the coupler off. Take the fan off. And now at this point, I would highly, if you're attaching to the wall, I would highly recommend putting the fan shroud on the foot. But I'm going to save that because I need to check the hole alignment to figure out which side the fan has to go on. Alright, so now talking about the setting up the extruder here, as now we're working all with the extruder. So I'm just going to leave the leg there, the other leg there. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the mounting holes for mounting on the wall. So here we have the 4 holes for mounting on the wall. We have a hole here, hole here, a hole over here, hole through here, and a hole down over here. So those are the 4 mounting holes to mount them up to a wall. Now these holes here are larger in the front, and they could even be cut out here, so that you could get either a so you get a screw, you get a driver through, and also to get your screw through, because your screw is obviously going to be bigger than this hole. This hole is a 1/4 inch hole, so you could use 1/4 inch lag or anything like that.